I'm a DM.
Jesus wept. But that's a very good point. We are here this evening to discuss becoming a DM.
Oh, I'm not a DM, sorry.
Yeah, I've never been a DM in my life.
Right, just cancel the whole fucking podcast then, never mind.
All right, thanks everyone. Good talk.
Good podcast, guys.
GG. What made you want to start DMing versus just playing D&D?
I
Sorry,
think
do I have to pick one of you to start talking?
I'll go. I think it's like, so I was in one game, Jack's lovely Fandelver game, and I just wanted to
You're
like
supposed to smoke up my ass, Jake.
being sarcastic.
I will just edit
Oh,
the
right.
I think it was just kind of there was two things. It was like, well, I'd like to play a bit more, and I just didn't have another game going. And also, I thought, oh, I could do that, in terms of and I like the idea of playing the monsters and all that sort of stuff. So then I decided to do it, and that's the way I think most of it goes. Is the person who wants to play the most, but there's no games, ends up just going, all right, well, I'll run the game and I'll get people to play with me. That's sort of where it came from.
Yeah, it was the same for me, pretty much. But also, just to want to see the other side of the DM screen, and understand the inner workings of how you build a story and how you build a world. But more than that, was about wanting to provide an experience that I would have enjoyed for other people. And then watch them enjoy it. That's one of the great things about being a DM, is that all the things that you lay out and that you plan, the other people, then the players, then get to enjoy and get to experience and get to wander around in your world, and that's pretty fun. So yeah, similar thing.
Yeah, I'll try not to echo what everyone else says. But as I was playing Jack's lovely and amazing Fandelver sessions, no, it got me hooked as well, because I very much got invested in this character that I'd created for Jack's sessions, and I was playing Eldritch the Wizard. Loved this guy to pieces. But what I found, who's now dead, a single tear. It's very sad story.
Point at which I'm going to edit in that clip from the first podcast where he goes, "I don't think you can kill me."
But that's what I mean, Jack. So it is a skill issue at this point, because you physically can't kill me. I'm just too good. Yeah, brilliant. I hate it. So I very much enjoyed playing Eldritch, but I'm someone who likes to play different personalities and do different things. So as much as I would have a conversation with Jack as the DM, he would be playing NPC 1, NPC 2, NPC 3. And I was playing Eldritch, and I thought, oh, I wish I was on that side of it. I want to play more than one thing over a 4-hour stretch. And I also love, exactly how Jack said, is to build a narrative, build a world, build a story, and just watch your players enjoy it. It's just let them roam free and go, look at this cool thing. Oh, you've missed it. Oh, that's fine. I'll just move it over there. Really, really good fun. Like, the most fun I could ever have out of a session at once is just sitting back doing nothing and just watching them play. That's great fun.
So was there anything that when you sort of felt you wanted to take the plunge into becoming a DM that you were particularly nervous about, or anything that you gave you pause for thought? And if so, how did you kind of overcome that?
Oh, I can start with that one. I shit myself. I was so scared. I didn't think I could do it. I really didn't think I could do it. So a lot of people will look at their DMs as players and go, I could do that. I never thought that. I initially went, I can't do this. I just wanted to make a story. I just wanted to play a monster and attack something. So on my first session, I think I even gave you lot the spiel when I started up Curse of Strahd. This may probably be really rubbish and we won't want to play in a week's time, because I just didn't know if I was going to be any good at it, and my anxiety just went through the roof. I think the 3 days leading up to session 1, I couldn't sleep. I was really, really scared. But as soon as I got into that first session and the game just started rolling and words were just nicely coming out of my mouth. I had Jack there to help with any rules or anything like that. And eventually, after 1, 2, 3 sessions, the nerves just kind of went and you just roll with it because, yeah, it just went really fluid after that.
Yeah, I think for me, it was just the volume of information, right? So as a player, you receive information and you decide whether or not you're going to hold on to that and do anything with it. And there's some players that take lots of notes, like you do, Pip, or people that don't take any notes, like me, when they're a player. But as a DM, you've got all of the information that tells the story. If you get any of that wrong, it's hard to retcon it. So it was about, like, for me, especially when I was first starting the campaign, was making sure I was giving you the right information all the time, and that you weren't being led astray in any way about the direction that the story was going and the information that you were getting. So just the quantity of shit you need to try and remember. Obviously, you got notes and things that help you, but yeah, keeping a smooth running game while also remembering all of the information that you need to give at a certain point in time is quite daunting. We know the rules, right? We all do. We all play to the same mechanical rules. So that was fine. But yeah, just about setting up a story that people were interested in and that you could remember.
I think for me, like, well, I think first of all, I think becoming a DM has been quite mystified anyway, and it makes it a bit scary to jump into. Like, people think it's a lot harder than it actually is, and like, so that was the thing with me. Was like, oh, how do I plan an encounter? Like, is it too hard, too easy, and all that sort of stuff, and having to play so many different things, and also at the same time meet new people because so I DM my first session in person, no one from this server. So I had to just basically brand new meet like 5 other people, and then become their DM, and that was quite a nerve-wracking thing. But yeah, as Andy said, I think once you sort of get into the first session and just start rolling the dice and stuff, you guys will. I know all the rules. I've written down what's supposed to happen and things like that for like NPCs and stuff. And then it becomes a lot easier after that.
Yeah, I think one thing that gave me real confidence to jump in as a DM is I'm very, very good in a real world situation of dealing with stress or unknown circumstances that can just pop up out of nowhere. And that's kind of what I see DMing as. So if a player goes, hey, I want to run left because you've blatantly told us we should go right. I want to go left. That to me is the most fun part of being a DM because I like to think on my feet. I like to get into a situation that I don't know the answer to and come up with an answer for it. So I knew by being a software developer in real life, we get that day-to-day basis that if something will change, we have to go off in a different direction. We have to solve something in a very particular way. Problem solving. That's what I loved most about being a DM. That's what I love most about. Sounds like I'm not DMing anymore.
Is there something you need to tell us?
I'm dead. Jack killed me.
We knew that.
Jacob's right there about the mystification of being a DM. Like, so many people, as players, they look at what DMs do and they think, I could never do that. Run a one-shot. Just do it.
Yeah.
Pick up that pre-made one-shot from somewhere and run it. And see how it feels. And if you're telling people this is the first time I've ever DM'd and you're playing with people you know and you're playing with your friends, then they get it and they won't care. I think starting up a campaign with people you don't know, that's probably more daunting than starting up a campaign with people you do know, or running a one shot with people you do know, which I think probably helps. I think that probably helped you out a bit, Andy. I don't know, but knowing that you knew the people you were playing with has probably helped out a little bit.
It did massively.
I didn't know any of you fuckers. So when I started my campaign, so I was like, "Oh my god!"
You played a couple sessions with me, didn't you? I think you went maybe 2-3 sessions as a player with me. I think.
Yeah. So on the Fantastic Friends, I was more comfortable.
Yeah.
But with the Useless Fucks, I was like, I don't know these people. They might be right pain in the ass. Luckily, it all turned out to be awesome. So wasn't a
I
I
problem.
mean, no, we absolutely are pains in the arse.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
True, but you're not dickheads, so it's all right.
That's a big problem as well. Is that it's less about playing the game; it's more about social skills. I think a lot of games come into is like, especially you're meeting strangers, and then do you have like if one of them is just enough, then like, well, how do you handle that and sort of kick them out of the group, or not necessarily kick them out, but maybe approach them and be like, can you not do that and stuff like yeah, it's about communication and stuff, where I think a lot of games can go awry.
Yeah, most definitely. It's there's a problem at the table, deal with it in game if it's an in game problem, deal with it out of game if it's an out of game problem. We're all adults, or we all should be. I won't allow children at the table, but we're all adults. We can deal with adults' problems as they come up. But one thing that I looked into quite a lot, because I'm a very analytical person. When I started DMing, I did the typical thing of, how do you start being a DM? Banged it in on Google, come up with all sorts of Reddit posts of people saying, oh, start with an easy module. Don't try one of the big modules, or don't use Foundry, or just really basic tips that actually, knowing what I know now, I don't really agree with. I chucked myself in at the deep end according to what people were saying. So I knew I wanted to do a sandboxy type module because I'm just that kind of DM. So I thought Curse of Strahd was a great thing to start with. And everybody online just sort of hushed you off of it. They said, don't start Curse of Strahd if this is your first time ever being a DM. It's too hard. It's too tricky. It's an advanced module. No, it's not. Because you're the DM. You can make up stuff on the fly. You can change things. You can do whatever you want. So yeah, don't get put off by people telling you can or can't do something because you're a brand new DM. Like I jumped straight into Foundry, straight into Curse of Strahd, and I mean, tough learning curve, but
I think any module, I wouldn't say any module, but I think modules in general are a bit easier than trying to start from scratch and do your own thing anyway, because it's all written down for you. You just need to read it and then put it into practice. And like you said, then if you want to change things, you can. Make it up, like completely making your own world and stuff like that. Whilst it's doable, there are tools for you to do that. I just think literally getting an adventure that's pre-written, you can't really go wrong with. It's not
yeah, it's a good question actually. I don't think I've ever asked you this, Jack. But I know this was my case, but when you picked your module, Lost Mine of Fandelver, did you have the intention to start with to go through the module as written, or did you always intend to homebrew?
The plan was just to run it.
Okay.
Run it from big front to back and do it like that as the first campaign.
Yeah.
But as I've got more confident in it, and I've been able to see two things: one, the way that the gaps in the story of the pre-written campaign, and the way that the characters and the players have been playing, were opportunities to do homebrew. So, for example, where we're at now with Baldwin being in the Druid Grove, like that whole thing is way off the grid from what the module asks for. The components of it are there, but the whole thing is nothing. None of that is written in the module. But I knew I could do that because the players worked with it. Like it would work with the players. I was more confident in building that world. And I actually think I've made it better than it would have otherwise been. So only through, and that's only come about like after 20 or so sessions. So because they were in Baldur's Gate before that, which was all homebrew as well. But yeah, so I think I would be more comfortable now, and I have been thinking about fully homebrewed campaigns, but only because I've done almost a year of module based DMing.
That's it.
I would start with a module because Jacob's right. Like all the info's there. You just need to pull on it whenever you need it. But once you get confident in that, then you do automatically start to think about, what if they went off into this place and did this thing that doesn't exist in the book, and then you start to naturally build it.
Yeah, so from the start, I always knew I wanted to do homebrew because I knew no module written by someone else is going to be perfect for what I want to do, because naturally I didn't write it. But what I thought about doing full homebrew, but it's like if you sit down and try and write a book, right? You open up the front cover and go, "How did you start? How do I build a world?" And it was not only daunting, but why try and build my own world when there's stuff like the Forgotten Realms and Faerun, the gods of Faerun? There's so much backstory in the Forgotten Realms that it's too hard not to pass up. So my intention was to always get a module and get the backbones to the whole world and the system, Forgotten Realms, and then just build on it homebrew style. So you think you're playing Curse of Strahd, but you're actually playing Andrew's weird, wacky, happy, fun time Curse of Strahd with Russian people and kids that do poos and shoes.
I don't know about fun time. Fun time is a stretch.
Question.
Oh,
I'm joking.
thanks, guys.
There are just general tools out there. Like, you don't have to. Like, there are guides. Like, that's what the Dungeon Master Guide is there for. Whether you think it's as good as or not as others is up to you. It's debatable. But like I said, the guides are there for you if you want to make your own world. Pick up the guide, and there's roll tables and there's tips and things like that. Just pick up the rulebook, and there's stuff in there for you that will help you design it without needing to do a module.
Andy's right, though. There is no need to. Like, all right, let's say you don't follow the story of Phandelver and Below. Say you don't follow the story. Still use the world. Like, Faerun's fine. And the pantheon of it there is fine. Like, you can go out and build a whole new world with a whole new pantheon of gods and all this kind of stuff, and actually not add anything to the campaign at all, because what people are interested in, the players are interested in, is the story.
Yeah.
So you can go and build that world, but it has to add something that wouldn't otherwise be there if you were just doing Faerun, because otherwise, what's the point? All right, yeah, cool, well done, you look cool, round of applause, gold star, you've created your own world and you've built a good campaign out of it, great. But you don't need to. You really don't.
No, and like a lot of people get into DMing because they've watched Critical Role or something like that. Matthew Mercer has spent the last God knows how many years creating Exandria. He's thought about these tiny little things, but then so have others with Forgotten Realms. So yeah, if you want to go be that guy, if you want to go be the next Matt Mercer and create the next Exandria, go for it. But don't expect you to build that world in a couple of weeks and expect your players to come in and want to explore the caverns in the lost reaches of Durangar, the city of melancholy. I don't know. So your players just won't want to. So try not to. Already building on the Forgotten Realms is really, really good, because you don't need to build these things that you fall in love with and your players might never go to. So that was it for me.
I'm really enjoying this because me and Sam are having to do work.
Oh, sorry.
It's fine. It's great.
Hey, what's the next question?
Should you build your own world or run Faerun?
Yeah.
Like, how do you, like, is it better to start with a module? Oh, hang on, wait, no, you've answered that question.
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. Pick one.
You'll create infinitely more work for yourself if you're a first-time DM and you don't just use what's already in the Faerun world. And actually, you could spend a lot of time, like I already do, in a campaign that's already got a module for it. I already spend a lot of time creating different avenues for you guys to go down, and there are ones that I don't think about. But I've created so many variations of things that just never happen because you never go that way or you never do something. If I was to then build an entire world base that you only saw like 10% of, what a waste of time. What a total fucking waste of time. So if you enjoy doing it, though, that's fine. Absolutely go ahead and do it, but just be prepared that your players may never experience it. I think a lot of people that you see the horror D&D horror stories of people of DMs railroading is when they've homebrewed their own world.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to force their players to enjoy the thing that they've written.
It's that they want to tell a story in the sense of like they're going, oh, I've written this like cover to cover. They've basically written a book, and they want people to read that book that they've written. Whereas what they should be doing is just creating an environment in which fun can be had, where you play the game, rather than like I said, railroading and stuff like that.
Like a DM who creates what they believe is an awesome city. They create a city, and it's got some really cool things in it, and crazy politics and cultures, and there's a mysterious thing going on in this particular city. They're going to force their players to go there because they've spent the time to create it.
Yeah.
Whereas you guys go on a journey, and I said to you, you go from one end of Faerun to the other when you're going to Baldur's Gate. How do you want to get there? And all I had to do was look on the map and see all the different places, and just decide which. There's no point in me creating a city that sits on the other side of Faerun if you're never going to go there. What's the point?
Do you know the switch for me, the real switch to go from when I first started, I was following the module probably about 70%, and when I made the switch to 30%, 70% homebrew, was when these guys got to Vallaki in Curse of Strahd. Politics, intrigue, little mysteries to discover in Vallaki. They go to the Blue Water Inn, and Lady Wachter is sat in the corner. These guys just went, she's bad news, don't like her. Vasilia's there. They went, he looks like Strahd von Zarovich. At that point, I went, fuck. Well, all right, we're going to have a pub quiz instead then. So I had to completely change all of Vallaki because it was within 5 minutes they just uncovered all the mysteries. I was like, may have messed up there. But that was really good fun.
So Andy homebrews because his players ruined the module.
No,
it wasn't you that ruined it. It was me sticking Lady Wachter in a situation where she wasn't supposed to be, as per written in the module. You're supposed to encounter her later, but it's a pub, it's a tavern. People are out having a drink. I like to think of even the most seedy individuals, the villains of your story. They still need to eat, they still need to drink, and they can have a laugh. They don't all have to be doom and gloom, sat in their castles, plotting their next evil scheme. They want a pickled egg and a pint. Do you know what I mean? So that's what I like to think about.
So I think, I was considering doing a bit of DMing for a bit. Still haven't quite found the confidence to get that one shot off the ground. But I think one of the daunting things that you think is, well, what if the players do go off on some completely random tangent, and I can't think quickly enough on my feet to keep the story smooth, to keep it running. It's as you've said, you can't plan for every eventuality, and if you try, you're going to waste so much of it, and they'll still come up with something that you didn't think of. So how do you kind of, get past that, the thinking on your feet, or if they want to talk to an NPC about what they had for breakfast and what colour their underwear is this morning and stuff like that. If you're in Baldur's Gate and then for some reason they decide they're going to pull a heist and steal a musical instrument that you've got no maps for, and you're not prepared to kind of counter a heist and all that sort of thing. What do you do with that?
Well, I think some of it's about creating expectations. So if you are running a one shot, maybe you tell your players like this is going to be a bit railroady, and if the players know that and they accept that, then they're probably happy enough to still play it. But if you turn around and tell them it's a complete sandbox, do whatever you want, then they go do something that's not there, then the experience goes down. But also, I'd use the tool resource that you've got available to you in the system that you're running. Again, roll tables, I'm a big fan of. It's a great way of just going, right, the events in the area I don't know about, roll d20, okay, it's a woods, roll a d8 off of that, there's wolves there, and if it is a case of, oh, hello, Mr. NPC, what colour's your underwear? That's quite easy to just go, why are you asking me? Or they're red. It's some of the stuff you do just have to come up on the spot, but I think a lot of those things where you have to come up completely on the spot quite basic, and as long as, like say, using resources available to you, you could usually randomize your way through that.
Yeah.
There are sort of random dungeon builders and things like that out there.
And there's always the aspect as well of there doesn't always have to be something in some place. So let's say, for instance, you're on a road and the road leads north, and your players go, I want to go west. There doesn't have to be a circus to the west or a city to the west. There can just be an open field with nothing in it and a sheep. And they'll be like, oh, that's boring. Well, okay, you're in the middle of nowhere. What did you expect? So it's... Yeah, it is. It can quite...
I've had
Yeah.
it before where I think it was in the Useless Fucks campaign. You guys were like, right, we're going to go back to that crime scene. I was like, oh, here we go. And then you climb up on the door, on the roof, and you kick open a door and you walk into the house, and there's something in this house. We're going to tear this house apart. And you spent a good hour or 45 minutes in the house going, and every time I was like, it's a house. It's a house. It's a house. Right. What's down? What's behind this door? Well, yeah, just looks like a fucking house. And it took you guys a while to be like, I think it's just a house. I was like, it's just a house.
I remember that now. It was Sleeping Giants.
It wasn't. It was in Baldur's Gate.
Baldur's Gate. Oh, right,
It was, you know, where we had the fight with the wall. You know, where you fell off the top.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And Willow made a grand entrance by missing.
I think you've done this multiple times then.
Fair enough.
Yeah, we definitely did it in Connieberry with the fucking outhouse next to What's Her Tits' house, where we were all like, we're going to go investigate because we think it's a mimic, and it was not a mimic. It was literally just a toilet, and it was pointing.
So I could have been like, oh my god, I need to make up something intriguing and interesting that's in this house. Didn't need to. And in the end, they ended up back on the path of the storyline because that's the way they led it. What I could have done if I was a horrible railroady DM was just be like, yeah, there's no point going back there, guys. That was just a normal place. That house is empty. And that would have been boring to you. That you gained nothing and you wasted a shitload of time. But you made that decision. I didn't make it for you.
Mhm.
And I just described what was there, which was fuck all. But I think going back to what you're asking, like the best thing you can do, like as a first-time DM that's a bit nervous about it, run a one-shot, because anybody that joins a one-shot knows that it's not an enduring campaign and they know it's not sandbox. So they would expect it to be railroaded. I did it. I pulled that one-shot out of my ass in the gloom rock cavern things. It was
what
really
a disaster.
It was. I think it was a disaster. But you all fucking loved it. They loved it.
It was great.
And all I did was say, right, you walk into a cave, go.
No, sorry. You walk into a cave and it's pitch black and light doesn't work. If you light a torch, it doesn't light. Brilliant. Who's got dark vision? Nobody.
What a wonderful way to not have to describe anything that you see. For something that you know nothing about. So yeah, run a one shot because players will understand what the premise and the boundaries of a one shot are. And then get comfortable with that a few times, and then gain the confidence to go in and do a campaign. But again, set like Jacob said, set the boundaries.
Yeah.
So I think I said to you guys right at the very Useless Sucks right at the very beginning in our session 0, I said, look, there is a story here. This isn't a sandbox. If you go off and you go and do whatever you want that is unrelated to the story, freedom, pure freedom, then I'm going to have to rebalance that back to the story because that's how I want to play it. That's the way I want to DM. I don't want a sandbox DM. I want a storyline DM. And you guys are all cool with that. And for them, I don't think we've had any issues in that respect. I don't think anybody thinks I railroaded anything. If you have, you haven't told me. But also you've had complete agency over the whole thing and gone wherever you want to do and do whatever you speak to whoever you want to speak to.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Jack.
I was going to say about NPCs. It's the same thing as when you're a player. So if I'm a DM and I put this NPC in front of you and the NPC says what color is your underwear, it's the same. You would do the same thing. You'd be like, wait, who the fuck are you and why are you asking me that? So all you got to do is when you're doing role play with an NPC, is just put your same RP hat on as you would as a player. Only you're playing a character that you don't know as well as your own character. It's the same thing.
Yeah. If you're expecting me to say something, I forgot what I was going to say.
I was going to say there was a very pregnant pause there.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
We're
It
all
was
just
going to be
waiting
really good.
expectantly, like, right now
It
it's
was-
Andy's turn.
It was going to be
Yeah.
really good. It was going to be really good. No, I got it. Don't let people tell you that railroading is bad. Right? It's not. If your players are expecting a sandbox world, they won't like being railroaded. There is a whole lot of people out there that like to be railroaded, and then you've got the middle people that they like to be able to go off left, and they'll go off for about half an hour left, and then they'll go ooh back to the main track again. The hybrid players are really, really good. The railroad players are good. The sandbox players are really good. I'm a sandboxy DM. I like to build a little world, but I like to contain that world, which is why I picked Curse of Strahd, because you're stuck in Barovia. You can't go to Neverwinter. You can't get to Baldur's Gate. So, as much as my world is sandbox, I put in railroad mechanics, like time mechanics. You've only got a certain amount of time to do certain things. Yes, you can run out of time and you'll suffer the consequences for it, but it's, again, like Jack, it's because I want to tell a story. That's where I get my fun. So if we play the next 5 sessions of you lot searching through houses where there's nothing in it, it's fun, but we all want to have a story. So yeah, it's all about player expectations, and don't let anyone ever tell you that railroading is bad. If you want to run a railroaded one shot or a railroaded campaign, go for it, because they're great.
I'm not sure what anybody's playing when they're doing a sandbox, though. So when you take pure sandbox, as people describe it, which is you turn up and there's no pure storyline to follow, and the players can just do whatever they want. What are you doing? What?
It's essentially like it's impossible to do without DM tools, really. Like I said, ways to generate encounters and NPCs and dungeons, stuff, because you just physically can't write all that down and remember in your head about what this world's going to do.
But what are you doing? Are you just jumping from side quest to side quest? Is that it?
Well,
kind of, yeah. I think like there'll be, depends on what it is. There'll be sort of this. When it's set up as a sandbox, you might, as the DM, decide, all right, there's going to be this plot going around in this city, and the players might pick it up, they might not. I think is the general sort of idea of, and then it creates the sort of idea of a big bad, if you know what I mean, which they could ignore if they wanted to.
So I guess then it depends what you define as railroading. So I define railroading as player says I want to do X, and I say you can't. Right? That to me is what railroading is. Whereas I think some people think railroading is you do a side quest and I drop in something that potentially leads you somewhere else that you might want to explore, and you go, oh god, why is DM dropping something? I've seen I've seen people complain that that's railroading as well. Like, and therefore there are sandbox DMs that just won't drop in anything. Or just literally let them do whatever they want. Therefore, there is no background plot. Surely, if you're playing a background plot, you are at risk of railroading.
It does depend again about player expectations, because they might not want to have an overarching story. They might want to just jump from dungeon to dungeon and just do grindy dungeons. So again, it's just all about finding the right DM and the right players that want to play a certain type of game.
Yeah, because going back to what I said, I like a sandboxy world and that type of thing. So I'm going to play pure devil's advocate with you here, Jack, and go, I love sandbox, everything about it. I agree with you on most things to do with sandbox / railroading, but I just want to play devil's advocate here. So if I set up a world now within an hour and I put I'm not going to call him a villain because he's not a villain. He's just an evil man. So I put an evil man in a castle. His name's Derek, and he kidnaps dogs and sells them for slavery. Right? Horrible, horrible man. I then put him in this big castle, like I said, and then I'll put a town with some political intrigue and stuff like that. And I'll sort of box it in this little world, and then I'll plonk you players in there, and I'll say, go. Your players with fantasy magic, do whatever you want kind of style. the sandbox style of that is there is no storyline. There is a bad bloke. There is other people, but the story will make itself as these fantasy players go through, and they will create their own storylines. I think that's the real intention of a sandbox: is you put the pieces in there and then you let your players go like that.
Which is great until they don't pick any of it up.
Yes.
So
Can't
if
be talking about us, obviously.
you do all of that, right? And then I'm like, I don't care about your man in a castle that steals dogs. I want to go and sail across the ocean. What are you going to do then?
Well, which is still fine. So if you sailed across the ocean, you would sail to the continent of philanthropy. And on the continent of philanthropy, there is there's an evil man named Daniel. He steals cats.
Evil people begin with D for you. Yeah.
There's a theme, isn't there?
Yeah, so Daniel steals cats, but he steals them for nefarious purposes. So he consumes the cats into a machine, and this machine is able to bore into the ground and suck up all the mithril. But to power that machine, it's powered by cats.
Yeah.
Eventually, your players are going to want to kill one of my bad guys called D.
Yeah.
Nah,
There's
because
loads of players that don't want to do that.
Jack's character hates cats, so he's good with it.
But you just
This
create
is the problem with this is
um,
the definition of railroading, because there are players that will go, "You've railroaded me because you keep putting in things for me to pick up, and I don't want that." And that's there's so many.
Yeah, okay.
I
Yeah,
think it
I see what you're
depends
saying.
entirely on what kind of player you are.
yeah.
Because I think it's the same as with video games. Because obviously a lot of D&D kind of you can link it where you have these like open world games, and it's great until you get to a point where it's like, oh no, you need this very specific item that you pick up in this very specific mainline quest before you can enter this town.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, this isn't an open world game because I can't go to this place until I've done the main quest that I am actively ignoring because it's not the most fun part of the video game.
Yeah, I'll keep going back to that. It's a case of just go. Well, what kind of players are you? Do you want to play an evil campaign? Do you want to play a good campaign? Do you want to, do you want political intrigue? Do you want just high fantasy adventure, that kind of thing? And then you create plot hooks around and that. So you go, all right. Well, these want to be the typical good guys, so I'm going to create an evil man in a castle, and they'll probably go after it. But if they
What's
don't,
his name?
David, and then
What's it?
yeah, and then even if they don't, then you'd come up with another typical evil guy. But if they want to play evil guys, then you might go, all right, well, there's a puppy over there looking sad. Do you want to go kick it? Like, that's what's
What's this DM talking about? Kicking puppies?
I'm sorry, you've got a machine that eats cats.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
I have seen like DMs online and stuff where if they have like an open world, they won't have a story when it starts. They'll build a story based on what players do.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting way to avoid railroading. In that, like, it'll be that the BBEG ends up being like a commoner that they slighted at level 1 by like not wanting to buy his baked goods.
Yeah.
And they didn't mean anything by it. They just didn't have the money to buy the baked goods, but he took it personally and he spent months or whatever while they're off doing all of this other obscure, random, one-shot-esque dungeon shit.
I want to play this. I want to
And
play it now.
then obviously over the months and the years, suddenly there's this like this pop-up bakery empire that sells sausage rolls and sausage bean and cheese melts and steak bakes.
You're kidding. Was his name Greg?
His name was Greg. How did you know?
Oh,
This is why I think railroading gets a bad rap.
Yeah.
Because I don't think people understand what railroading is. Yeah. And anybody that complains about railroading thinks that anybody that puts any kind of plot in front of the characters or the players has railroaded them. So if you look at what Critical Role do and the way Matt Mercer does it, I think he's created an open world sandbox with a storyline to encourage the players to follow. And if they choose not to follow that, then it doesn't really work. it's just an open world that you can do whatever you want in, and then nobody would actually be interested in following the game at all because it wouldn't be that interesting.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing I'm trying to build, I'm trying to do, is create this overarching thing to do, to solve, problem to overcome, challenge to overcome, but with all of the agency that you would get from a sandbox. Rather than what I think a lot of people think a sandbox should be, which is exactly what Pip's just described, which is, right, there's a world, off you go, and I'll make it up as I go along.
Yeah, I think
Never do that.
what Matthew Mercer does quite well is he has built a whole world where you can go wherever you want, but he builds in some big plot device that is almost impossible to miss, right? Spoiler alert for Critical Role, Vecna's on the loose. Uk'otoa has been summoned. The moon is tethered to a large beam in the sky. So it's so much that his world is there. Go wherever you want, do whatever you want. But if you ignore this big, nasty MacGuffin, the world will be destroyed and there will be no game to play. So your players are encouraged that way as well to do it. So yeah, his whole Exandria is sandboxy to the point that if they don't follow the storyline, but it's difficult with that because how much are they following the storyline and all that?
That is the best D&D world for me as a DM and as a player, because you can do you have full agency, but there is something to grasp onto there. But there's a lot of people that would say that's Railroad.
Yeah.
Which is not.
It's not, because if them as players decided, oh, we don't really care, we're just going to go around robbing people for how many sessions, he just goes, all right, but you suffer the consequences, the world ends, game done. You can't have to get players that want to play your game. You know what I mean? They're gonna, like I said, we were going to follow the plot hooks, so you can come up with different ones for different players and stuff, but ultimately, if they're just ignoring every single plot hook, do they really want to play the game? Do they just want to, do they just want to hit things? In which case, just run dungeons.
Yeah,
they're desperate to play D&D that they will just play whatever they can take and do it the way they want to play it.
Yeah. There may be. There may be groups out there that are just the DM is there to just referee. So they're not they don't have a storyline. They're just there to say, okay, roll a nature check if you want to look at that plant. That's a 17. That's a good berry. I suppose it's your interpretation of what's a good game, right? So people can sit there forever and a day playing Baldur's Gate for millions and millions of hours, going exploring every little thing. Some people
100% railroaded. There is nothing about Baldur's Gate that isn't a railroad.
Oh, for sure. But what I'm trying to say is there's different types of people for different realms. So there's the person that can play a million hours of Baldur's Gate doing the same thing over and over again. But there's the next person who can only just play one playthrough because they enjoy the story. Yeah. There's also some players who will play, let's say, Skyrim, which is a sandboxy type game. So go wherever you want and do whatever you want. And some players in that will pretend to run, not pretend. Well, it is pretend, but they will run their own shop in Skyrim. Unfortunately, Skyrim doesn't have the mechanics for that, so you download mods and all that. And that's the best thing about D&D is you could sit there and run a shop. And if that DM is happy to just sit there, play referee for the next 6 months, you can sit there and run a shop or run a tavern or do that. There's going to be loads of groups out there that do that, and they probably love it. But again, goes back to what Jacob said: players' expectations. That's the game people want to play. Do it.
I had it where I had an in-person. And every week I'd turn up to the in-person and the DM would be like, right, there's a dungeon, off you go. And I was like, but why? Why am I, what's the motive, like, for me to do this at all? And I hated it because it was just one shot, essentially, after one shot after one shot with the same characters. It drove me mad.
Oh, it was the same characters, was it?
Yeah, it was the same characters, but it was just like, so basically the whole premise was that you've all arrived on an island, and this island is being colonized by some westernized style nation, and you've got to go out, and they're tasking you to go out and clear out different areas of it, and they'd be like, right, today the guy in charge says, go and clear out this area. Off you go. And we'd be like, all right then. And off we go. And then they'd be like, here's the dungeon, here's the area, kill the people, go back and say, we did the job, and then get paid, and then just repeat it, just like completely churning that over and over and over again. It's painful because there's no story in it at all. It drove me mad. It was complete agency. Like, we were able to do whatever we wanted, but it was just so dumb because it was just doing the same thing over and over again.
Now, what you missed was you did the same thing over and over again. And the session that you left, actually, you found a little clue at the end of each dungeon, and it was a big.
Yeah, maybe.
That's what you missed, mate.
Maybe.
I think,
I highly doubt it, but maybe.
Pip, what you were saying, like the amount of people that are desperate to play, they'll just play anything. I think that's a big problem in D&D and TTRPGs in general, is there's not enough GMs to players. So you get a thing where, like, as soon as something comes up where they're like, oh, I can play, they'll just go into it, even if they hate it. And then that's what ends up going on these horror story subreddits and stuff. My DM's an arsehole because he did this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, they just didn't find a game that's for them.
Yeah.
I've noticed on like D&D other D&D Discord groups and like Facebook groups and Reddit or whatever, if someone advertises that they've got a game available, they will interview the people who apply it. Basically, like, oh, if you like, they'll spiel off like, oh, it's an open sandbox. And you have to discover the storyline. Blah 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 blah. It's set 25 million years after Calamity in Exandria, whatever. It's going to be quite a lot of roleplay, a little bit of combat, a lot of mystery. If you're interested, put blah 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 below, and I'll get in touch with you. And it's a lot of like, they will ask you a shit ton of questions about like your play style, what you're interested in, what about the campaign interests you, what kind of character you'd want to play, where you like, what kind of level you'd want to go, would you want a multi-class? And it's like they're just trying to dig out whether or not you are suitable for that game. And I know you guys obviously played with your friends because we're so delightful. But do you think that if it was obviously on this server there was 25 million people waiting to play a game, do you think that you'd do the same thing, or do you think it would be very much like, we'll play a few sessions and if you don't like it, don't come back?
That's an interesting question. I think it depends what mood I'm in a little bit, but I think I'd like to get just new people in and see what's what, but I think I'd have a sort of a filter, if you know what I mean. I'd probably do one shots with new people and then be like, they don't vibe with me or whatever, and then move on and sort of create a campaign out of people that play in the similar way that I play, as well as session zeros and stuff like that. Obviously help a lot by, you get these expectations out the way and stuff. But like I said, with people being so desperate to play, I think a lot of people just lie. I think they show up to session zero and just say whatever you want to hear. I mean, that gives you perfect justification to go, well, I said this in session zero, you've done the opposite, I have to ask you to leave, kind of thing. But yeah, I think one shots are a good way to filter out the kind of people you want to play with and stuff.
Yeah, interviews is tough. I do a lot of interviews in real life for real life jobs, and I can, within about 5 minutes, quickly grasp if someone is going to meet the vibe or the company ethics of where I'm working for. Now, in a real world situation, that doesn't account for much, right? If you've got someone that can vibe, but they don't have the skills, then they don't get the job. Whereas in D&D, it's all about that vibe. So you can very quickly gauge, even sometimes over text, does someone really vibe? So if somebody's going, I'm going to build a level 5 character of this homebrew subclass race, and he hasn't read that I've said no homebrew and we're starting at level 3, they're not the kind of guy that is invested in reading, but they might be so excited to play. And as much as that is a red flag, and in interviews, I don't know, they don't give you all the information. So actually, I think I fully agree with Jacob, is I would just do one shots and just see how people vibe, see how people play. Do they play? It's not, because everyone's got different play styles, but do they fit in the play style that I want to play with? Do you know what I mean? Because there's a lot of play styles that I wouldn't want to, like murder hobos. I don't particularly want to play with murder hobos, but some people may.
Some people have murder hobos thrust upon them. You don't realise what a psychopath they are until it's too late.
They're not the murder hobos that we want. They're the murder hobos we deserve.
Indeed. So how important to you is it, if you're running a campaign? Obviously, it doesn't really fit with a one shot. How important do you think it is to make a real effort to tie in character backstories? Does it depend on how much effort the player puts into their backstory? If they've written a 7-page novella, do they get their own thing? Or if they've just given you a quick paragraph, do you feel that you need to invest less? Is that a fun thing for you to do?
I think it all depends, to be honest. Like, I think you can have situations where you tie things into all these people's backstory and stuff like that, and then that person leaves, and then you're stuck. And then I think you get situations potentially where they will doing a bit of a backstory, and then all the rest of the players get bored because they don't really care and stuff like that. So it's hard to balance. But again, I think it all just circles back to what you and the players want to do. If you really like exploring each other's backstories and going, here's this guy who killed your parents, here's this, which I quite enjoy as a player, here's this guy that, made a deal with you 50 years ago, whatever it is, then that's fine. It puts a bit more pressure on you as a DM, because you've got to then think of more things that you wouldn't have necessarily had to. So it's something you've got to consider taking on, but it's just up to you as a DM for which way you want to play, and then let your players know that that's how you're going to do it.
I love throwing in the character backstories into the campaigns. I think I've done it because I know I'm playing with people that would care. Obviously, the more you give on your backstory, the more there is to work with, and therefore, there's more to build there. But if somebody hasn't done that, then that's fine. You can still work with them, and I have done that. Pip's, Willow's backstory, for example, was extensive, and there's been a lot of that sprinkled throughout the campaign so far. But Baldwin, I didn't get a massive backstory from. So what I've done there instead is throw you all into this big world that Baldwin's come from, and now we're building his backstory through that. So there are ways to manage it depending on how much backstory you've been given, but I think it's always fun to do it when you know that players are going to enjoy it. If people aren't going to care, then there's no point. They're not interested in exploring their backstories at all, then that's cool. But I think all of the people I play with, all of my players in my campaigns are interested in that, which is why I've chucked it in there. The art of it is doing it at the right time.
Yes.
And finding the right opportunities to do it. And there are many ways of doing it. With Willow, I've sprinkled things in at random points. I've sprinkled stuff in, and with Shimmer, we've kind of had big blow-up moments here and there where that's happened, and Laboran's had his bits sprinkled through as well. And we haven't had
got a whole ass one shot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
the main character.
Yeah, and then with Baldwin, we've kind of gone to his home. So yeah, there are different ways to do it. I think it's about how confident you are to do it and tying it into the story properly, which has actually been somewhat challenging. But if you're just going to chuck stuff in for the sake of chucking it in, maybe don't. If you can make it work with the plot that you're already running through, then yeah, go for it.
I'm gonna follow on from that quite nicely, actually, and that's how do you. It's fitting in your players' characters' backstory where it actually fits narratively. And it's one of the reasons why when I picked Curse of Strahd, I went, oh no, how'd you get somebody's brother in Barovia? It doesn't make any sense. Because you're just in this alternate plane of existence. So I had to think outside the box with the characters' backstories. And I got to be careful what I say because we haven't finished Curse of Strahd yet. But I had to think about it from day one and go, how do I want the characters' backstories to be affected by the Strahd storyline and Barovia? Like I said, I can't just bring in their brother, their sister, and I want to go back home and meet my parents. And that guy who killed my village, I want revenge. Well, he's in Faerun, not Barovia. So how do you do that? So you have to think outside the box a little bit. And just going back a little bit with I think there's sort of three types of players. The players that give the massive, huge backstory, which I love reading them. The players that give you a little bit of backstory and they grow it as they play, which is kind of like how I did it with Eldritch, or the players that give you zero backstory and they just go, you do it, Mr. DM. I am a blank canvas. Go for it. I want you to tell me I've got a sister that is married to Derek, the guy who enslaves cats. Do you see what I mean?
I
thought Derek was the dog slaver.
Daniel was the cat.
Daniel was the cat eater.
No, see, this is the twist, guys. Right? They were swapped at birth, so they actually share the same names, and they can go backwards and forwards, and they can tell anyway. All right, we can play this one shot at another time. So
definitely has to be a one shot at some point.
That'd be quite good.
So get your space now.
I've lost my train of thought now. Backstory is really good if you want to supply one. If you don't supply one, work with your DM as you progress through the story. I often speak to Pip and say, "Hey Pip, where do you want to take Farah? What do you want to do with her? How do you want to do it?" Jack goes off. Well, yeah. Well, we all want to go home from Barovia, horrible place. Work harder then. Come on. Jack goes off to have a baby, and well, Jack didn't have one, but as that happened, I was speaking with you, Jack, and sort of saying, right, you've missed this in the session. What do you think Tilly would be doing at certain times? How do you want her to come back? And we, like, do you know what I mean? You evolved for it, and we got some cool stuff there. And I dropped a bombshell on you a couple of sessions ago that your backstories are a part of Curse's part.
That they're nonsense, basically. Yeah.
Spaghetti and soup.
No, they have been altered. Certain events in your life has happened because of certain things.
So I don't like writing a massive backstory personally for my characters. And what I did with Andy for Curse of Strahd was just give, right, this is what's happened in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Go, make it work.
I think Andy got a paragraph off me about Farah, and it was literally like, yeah, she can't control her magic. Parents have gone missing. Grandma raised her, trying to find thing. Ended up in Waterdeep. Whoops.
Mm.
And that was pretty much all I gave Andy.
I did the 7-page novella for a series.
And I will add to that. So when your players put a lot of effort into a backstory, and sometimes in D&D, a player's character can die, and they can die quite early. Never let the hard work that your players put into it be the end of it.
Fuck 'em. Should have lived.
Or that.
So speaking of player death then, how do you handle that? Because obviously as a DM, I imagine that it can't be a hugely nice experience. It probably less so in a one-shot because people generally don't put so much effort into their characters. But if you're playing a campaign and maybe they've written a backstory or a backstory's evolved and, the characters have grown attached to each other, I mean, I guess there has to be a line. There has to be very real consequences and the real threat of death. Otherwise, no one's going to take it seriously. But, I know that the useless fucks have faced several TPK situations which probably should have been TBKs, and then Jack's given us some grace. And it's like, where do you kind of draw the line between there's a TPK on the cards here, what can you do to stop it? Or do you just let it run and purely let the dice tell that story? How dangerous do you make it for players without it becoming, anxiety inducing for them?
I've changed opinion on this. I used to be a bit more lenient and be like, oh no, I'll sort of put in a thing where you get a way out or whatever. But I think it's much more fair, and I think the players respect it more if you just go through and kill them because the choices they've made or choices the dice have made, if you know what I mean. Like, if ultimately the dice have rolled in a way where someone dies, then they die. I now won't ever sort of give a lifeline to go, oh, you can all run away if you press this button or whatever.
Like a guardian angel coming out of nowhere and healing the party to full.
Yeah. Like, as long as I know it's a fair fight, and I don't even mean that in respect of oh, it's completely balanced and it's in your favour. It could be a hard fight, but if you've not, like, say, picked up on the cues to that maybe you should have run away from this or something like that, then that's your decision, and you've went ahead and gotten yourself killed because of it. Yeah, as long as I haven't done something like, oh, put a bunch of level 1s against a Tarrasque, like something stupid like that, then I think it's fair play to just kill you.
I think there's a big difference between a single player death and a TPK.
Oh, hell yeah.
Because the TPK ends the campaign, or at least a big portion of it. So that's a completely different challenge. Player death, though, I've never backed away from and I've never pulled a punch from. So killing Kit was like the first one that we had, and did I feel bad about it? No, because if you put yourselves in that position, I made it clear what was happening, and that was the choice that you made. And I think the fact that you know that that's possible now has affected the decisions that you've made going forward. Like, I've seen you guys, or maybe we should back out of this. This doesn't feel good. What's the point of playing if there's no risk? You can't be all reward. It has to be risk. And I've not pulled punches from TPKs either. Like, I actually haven't.
No, you have not.
I actually have not. And I hope that's recognized, because the whole idea that I will just say, oh, it's okay, you get away with it. That there's no fun in that. There actually isn't.
Mhm.
And I know it can be anxiety inducing, and I know there's been times where, like, we've left it on a cliffhanger, and there's been a week where you guys have been messaging back and forth like, oh my god, what are we gonna do? And it feels terrible. But if you think about it, if I didn't do that, how dry would it be if you just knew that every time you walked into a scenario you would always win? How boring. Whereas if you walk into a scenario where there's genuine risk that the whole thing comes to an end there and then, that's more exciting, I think, even if it doesn't feel like it at the time. The Fantastic Friends the other week was almost could have easily been a TPK.
I died, so I don't care.
But again,
in Andy's brain, it was a TPK.
Yeah, where it was, that campaign's done for me now.
I could have been lenient with you on that, Andy. I could have let Eldritch
I
run.
would have been annoyed at you if you were lenient of me.
And exactly. And I knew you would have been, which is why when you walked past that bit of water and it had the octopus in it, I had a choice as a DM. I could have been like, nah, it's not there today. Or, no,
What? It's gone down pub.
Yeah, it is fucking there. I put it there from the beginning. The whole point of it being there was to pick people off as they ran down that little bit. That's what you did.
Yep.
I wasn't going to change it for you. Sorry. It's just and I think the fact that it was, I think if you hadn't known that it could have been there, like if you hadn't seen it from the other guys playing it before, maybe you would have been annoyed. Maybe it would have felt like I had targeted you with it.
Nope. Not at all.
But it was there, and that's just the fucking way it went.
We were in a dungeon. Everywhere you go in a dungeon, there's something. I would have never been annoyed at anything in that situation, but
so yeah, and I think the Fantastic Friends realise that now, because that's their first character death. So yeah, don't be scared of it, and definitely don't feel worried about what people think above the table about your decision making in that scenario. As long as you're like, so the rule. I don't know if to tell you this. The rule I've always had is, in a combat scenario, if a player is down, the combatants, the enemy, will always go for the living players first if they can, because they're the threat, and if they've neutralized one, then they'll continue to try and neutralize the rest. It's not like in real world scenario where they downed one and they just instantly finish them, because some people will play like that, but then what's the point in the death saves? Unless they genuinely have no other choice. Like, unless that combatant has no other target, then that's what they'll do. And that's probably as lenient as it gets.
When it comes to TPKs, I have, and I will pull my punches with a TPK. I don't have the stomach like Jack. So there's only been one moment that I've nearly TPK'd the party, and I gave them a hand. I reached down from the sky and I gave them a hand. And the reason I did it is I feel like I'm good at balancing an encounter. I feel like I'm really good at balancing encounters. But I made an encounter that the best option was to run, because some encounters they do it. But I never made it obvious to the players that they should run because of actions they thought they could take on this fight. And I don't feel like I gave them enough flags to say, "Hey guys, run, do some stuff." I assumed they would do other things, so I just gave them a helping hand. Do I regret it? No. Did I pull a punch? Yes. For you guys that are playing Curse Stride, you probably know the part that I'm on about. Because TPK scared the hell out of me, and I don't want to end my own campaign. But character death, yeah, I'll kill you. I'll kill you for going back to Jack's rule there. Is when someone's on the down or when someone's downed, and the monsters go for the other players. Yes, 8 times out of 10, I follow that rule. But I tend to give each monster a reason to be in a situation. If they've got a specific reason to be in that situation of we need to kill these guys, they're gonna beat the hell out of you. They are gonna down you. They're gonna crit you, and they're gonna kill you. Because I like that. I like it to be deadly.
I don't think there's anything more exciting than a potential TPK. I love it.
I had a similar
You
thing
can
with
see him thriving every time there's combat.
Yeah.
Jack is scary.
I had a similar thing with a TPK where, like, I wouldn't have pulled punches, but it's the fact that I messed up because a player dropped out. So, and I forgot to take a couple of orcs out, whatever it is. And then it was very clear that the action economy was way too unbalanced. And I wanted to run it by the module. So the module said there should have been less. And I was like, all right, well, it's not fair if I kill them all because of that. So instead, I just beat them up a bit and then decided the orcs were going to kidnap them, which essentially just gave them all like a free round on them, and then that just completely rebalanced it all. If the same thing would have happened, but the right amount of orcs on the screen, I would have TPK'd them.
Yeah. And because this podcast is about new DMs getting into it as well, I want to say this to new DMs. At the start of a campaign, if you're starting out at level 1, it is so easy for a character death, especially in the modules. Like, what is it? Lost Mine of Fandelver that you run, Jack? Probably the one that everybody suggests is beginner friendly. The first encounter you get into, you just get beaten up in that goblin cave, don't you? You just get annihilated sometimes, depending on how the dice roll.
I didn't even meet a goblin, and I was on death's side.
So it's very easy to have player deaths going on. As soon as you get to about level 5, don't be afraid of character death anymore. And the reason I say that is it's actually really hard to kill a character. Like, if you, and DMs never do this, never go into a situation where you're gunning to kill somebody. That is bad. Never go out of your way to kill someone. But even if you did, I bet you'd find it hard to do it. Because
you have found it hard to do.
Well, I've never targeted anyone.
Pretty sure Orion was meant to die at least 5 times before they actually did.
Okay, that one was narrative driven, and that was your fault. Your fault.
I know.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. That one was just fun.
But it proves your point is that yes, it was narrative driven, and yes, it was safe to do that. But my point is, you tried to do it and you fucking couldn't, and that's because the dice wouldn't let you.
Yeah, and even when the dice do let you, you're like, I like it every time when a character goes down and they're on, say, 1 failed death save, and you as the DM are going, "Oh no, what an intense moment! This character is about to die," and the player's going, "Boom, boom, boom, boom! My character's gonna die." Nah, 2 seconds later, healing word. They're on 1 HP. They're fine. Like, or 2 failures and 2 success death saves. Ooh, what will I roll? Someone just rolls a medicine check to stabilize you. Oh well, stress over with them, because it's really hard to kill a character unless you've got those enemies willing to kill the player on the ground. That's the difference there. It's if you follow Jack's rule of go after the immediate threats, then it's hard. If you've got the enemies that are willing and have the intelligence or have the motive to kill someone on the ground, then it's easy. So new DMs follow Jack rules.
I kind of base it a little bit on a couple of things. Like sometimes, like the intelligence of the thing that's attacking. If they're really stupid, then they won't necessarily play to the best of the tactical availability. And also sometimes just a dice roll. So then it takes it out of my hands and it just purely puts it in the dice. I'll just go, right, on a 6, he's going to kill you. On a 3, he's going to go after the other guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's the sort of...
Yeah, you can do it like that. I think actually what you said there about it ties into what Andy's saying and what you're saying. If you have a goblin, right, that's attacking the party, then do they go after the downed player when there's other options? Probably not. If you've got like a BBEG assassin, fucking right they do.
What's his
Fucking
name?
right they Gordon.
Oh, we've got a G.
Oh, you broke.
He's mixed it up, has he?
I don't play by your rules, motherfucker. But they absolutely they go down for the down player, absolutely, because they're intelligent and they know that the best way to kill them is to kill them. So yeah, there's definitely multiple things to think about. But I think to the crux of your question, Sam, is like, don't be afraid of it, because it does create a good story. TPKs don't create a good story because the story ends, but the threat of them is if there's genuine threat of it, I think that's good. I think I've created the genuine threat of it a few times, so I'm happy with that.
So to summarize the last like hour and a half of our lives, run one shots to start DMing. Don't be afraid of TPKs. Railroading isn't real is the gist of what I've gotten in the last hour and a half. And then the last one is all BBEGs have D names with the exception of gold.
But I don't think sandboxing is real either.
No, I don't think sandboxing.
Yeah, I can get on. I'd love to talk about that subject for so much more.
I think
because
ultimate player agency is real, but
yeah,
I don't think. I think it depends how you define these things, but yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I think it all depends on what the players want, what you want, and stuff like that. Like, and yeah, you said how you define it, because you could have you're in the middle of a city, do what you want, and then you might decide, oh, actually, there's a rival group of adventurers, and they keep beating you till you punch, and then they become the BBG. But then someone might go, no, it's railroading. So yeah,
I just feel like in sandbox, it's like, oh well, I want to go to X shop in that city that you've just described.
Yeah,
I feel like in sandbox, you have to then come up with it.
if that shop exists, yeah.
But then doesn't it always have to?
Sorry?
Doesn't it always have to?
No, I wouldn't say so. No. Wow, that's the trick, isn't it?
Box or the DM sandbox.
Yeah, you stick your players in a world and then go play in that world. Like with a sandbox, you stick someone in a box of sand and it's got a certain amount of toys in it.
No.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like whereas if you put them in
I get it.
We've gotten to the really meta part of the podcast where we are comparing sandbox to actual sandbox.
Yeah, but he's right though. He's making a good comparison. I'm with you, Jacob. I'm on your wavelength.
Yeah, like you can put so there's 2 sandboxes. One's got different toys into the other. So that's one's got a truck in, one's got a bucket and spade. Oh. So you stick the players in a world, and then they can do whatever they want with the tools of that world. That is the way I would say a sandbox is supposed to work.
I think you've railroaded them into being able to only do certain things and not others.
That is a really valid question though, because if they went, so if you said, right, you're in fucking Fandelver, and they go, right, okay, I want to go to the magic shop, and you go, there is no magic shop in Fandelver. And they're like, well, why not? This is a sandbox world. Why isn't there a magic shop in Fandelver?
You've just railroaded me. You've just made it impossible for me to do a certain thing by deciding that it's not there.
So is it then still
doesn't mean you can create the world. You give them the world, and they do what they want within the confines of that world. They can't leave the edge of the sandbox.
This is what I'm saying. The definition of sandbox is misunderstood by players, and that definition doesn't exist. And that is the version of a sandbox whereby you can do whatever you want, and whatever you want to do is there. And that's
that's at that point. That's not D&D. That's make believe, right?
That's
actually,
what I'm saying.
Yeah. That's like, because me and you could do that, Jack, and any of us, we could sit there and I'd go, Jack, your name's Jack the Barbarian. Go, tell me what you want to do, and then you'd hit me with something, and I'd go, aha, a goblin has ambushed you, but he's sneaky about it, and he's stealthy. And we'd roll some dice, and I reckon we could sit there for the next 10 hours and play a sandbox session where you say something, I say something, and it's just an improv session, really, with dice.
Yep. But that's what some players who want sandbox want.
I see. Okay.
Not what sandbox is, and that's why I'm saying it doesn't. That version, like the tipping, the very end of the scale, the two things don't really exist. Because the other example is like I say you're in a forest and there's something coming, and somebody goes, I want to climb a tree to climb to the top of the tree to see how to see what I can see out into the world beyond. And I'm like, well, it's a forest, but the trees are not very tall. Well, you've just railroaded that because you've prevented me from being able to do a thing to identify what's coming in my direction. Therefore, you have steered it in a particular direction by deciding that the trees aren't that tall.
So
it is all very much a grey area.
It is.
Oh yeah.
I do it if I'm in a good mood and I'm having fun. So let's say we're in the town of Valaki, because I'll just go back to that really good example. I think I had a shop that sells herbs and potions. I had Laszlo's carts and wagons. There was some other stuff that I had in there. But if you said to me, hey Andrew, I want to go to the Indian takeaway. If it was sort of halfway in the session, I'd probably go, okay, does it make sense for Valaki to have an Indian takeaway? Sure, why not? And we'd have this bit of improv where I'd go, right, it's down here. I'd decide on a place on the spot. I'd decide on an NPC who's selling the Indian takeaway. And you'd go in there and you'd have some roleplay session. That would be really good fun. So it's good to have that mixture of improv in there.
Sure. And that's a really low output scenario. Yeah. If I said to you, Andy, where's the nearest artillerist?
Northwest. Right. It's about 2 blocks up, about 100 meters.
I want to buy a fucking artillery piece.
That'll cost you 80 platinum.
But you've just so all right. So how do I make 80 platinum?
Oh, you don't have 80 platinum? Oh, I'm sorry, sir. You've come to the wrong place. You're looking for the gunsmith down the shop. He sells little revolvers that are much more of your fancy for your peasant brain. Bye.
So that's fine. So yeah, you could do that. But yeah, I just think too many people think that sandbox means that
do what you want when you want,
do
wherever
what you want when you want.
You've changed my opinion today. I came in today saying that if someone asked me, are you a railroad DM or a sandbox DM? I would call myself a sandbox DM. But I don't think you've changed my opinion on it, I think, tonight.
I think that a lot of people confuse is the difference between sandbox and agency, like Jack was saying.
Yes.
Like it's the difference between saying, right, this is the world. There is like you can feasibly travel as far as the fucking other end of Faerun, whatever. What you want to do, and somebody goes, well, I want to go and find a magic shop. Where in Phandalin, I want to go to the nearest magic shop. And you go, there isn't a magic shop in Phandalin. However, there are X, Y, and Z shops which may sell magic items. And that's not railroad. And you're just saying what you've asked for isn't here. Here are other options. And you still have the agency to go, right, well, I'll go to Barthen's and see what they've got for sale. And you still get to go and find whatever fucking magic items you've stocked Barthen's with on this occasion. But you just haven't been able to go, I want a magic shop that's got every magic item in it and I'm going to buy the most powerful potion that exists.
So some would argue that in the example when you guys were in Baldur's Gate and you wanted to sail down the river, and I said, well, you can do that, but the NPC then went on to explain that it's going to be really hard and therefore the cost is really high. Some people would argue that I railroaded you because I didn't have a plan for you to go down a river, and therefore I didn't want to have to go through the mental hoops to jump through to prepare that. So I've railroaded you. I haven't. What I've done is I've already got the world in place, which is whereby that is genuinely hard to do because there's an impending war, which you've now averted by other means. But have I railroaded you? Some would argue I have. I don't think I have. I've provided you a sandbox environment whereby there is a means by which to do it.
Yeah.
However, it's not within your current means. A lot of people think a plot hook is a railroad as well.
But
They think-
also, in that, it wasn't that you railroad. You still gave us the agency to choose. Like if we'd gone, do you know what? No, the river's going to be fastest. So we're going to go by river. Okay. Willow will conjure the ferryman, whatever. We'll go by boat, by hell or high water. You would have let us do that, but we would have ended up in a situation where there's pirates, or the boat's been attacked, or like Willow loses concentration and the ferryman turns against everybody and there's a TPK and we all die. So there's all like it's literally all about saying you can do this, but here is a reason why you shouldn't. But there's nothing stopping you from still doing it. It might not be as easy as it's going to be. Right, well, I'm going to railroad you guys. So back to starting as a DM. Obviously, you can Google how to be a DM and you can find the modules and stuff. But is there anything that you guys used when you first started DMing that you thought was really helpful? Like websites, apps, Foundry doesn't count.
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT. I agree.
Is your fucking friend in a pinch. Like honestly, I swear to God, I've got it open during every session, and if something comes up and I'm unsure, I'm just like, give me a name of an NPC or list 5 reasons not to do a thing or whatever it is. Why think harder than you need to?
Fair.
So how far ahead, like, because I assume, especially if you're running a campaign, there's a certain element of procedural generation to it because it relies heavily on the choices of the players and where they're going to go and what they're going to do. So I know that having chatted with Jacob, he said, you know, when he first started, he just made notes. And there was too much, like you over prepare. I think Andy said it as well, you over prepare. So how far kind of in advance would you recommend preparing and then sort of waiting to see what happens next session?
1 session.
I think it depends on your own style. To be fair, I think what you can do, I prepared quite far in advance for the basic outlines of, say, the dungeons, how many things are going to be in the dungeons, you know, what plot hooks are available and stuff like that. But the rest in between, I kind of is a bit more dynamic. You know, if something happens in one session, I'll then plan and change things for the next session, or just make it up. A lot of stuff that I've just made up on the fly in my campaign, just like about a newspaper and stuff like that in a weird Airbnb with a racist orc man.
I tend to go for 1 session, so I have a 1 session buffer. So when you go through a session, we end the session, I will then prepare the next session in my head. Not to some crazy lengths, but then actually I only do that about 60% of the time. The next session in my campaign that's coming up, I haven't prepared a single thing because the truth is I don't know what the players are going to do next. So there's no point me preparing.
In terms of prep, like in the past I have over prepped, but I think there's 2 types of preparation. One is long-term preparation, which you kind of just loosely work out what it is that's going to happen over a long period of time. So for the useless fucks, for example, I have prepped up to level 20. I've gone all the way to the end of the campaign. That's set out. I've gone that far ahead, but between sessions is where I go, right, what do I think fits in within the next 3-hour session? Okay, I think these possible things fit in, and that's then what I'll prepare for, and that's only a session in advance. So there's a loose agenda that's lined up for a long period of time, and it gets more and more elaborate and constructed the closer we get to actually playing that bit.
But do you consider yourself as a DM to be a player? Because I think there's this perception from the other side of the board that you're not one of us. You've got all the information, you control everything. Not that it's a player versus DM, because that's never right. But do you consider yourself as much a player as the players at the table?
I don't.
I consider I'm playing the game. I'm playing the monsters. I'm playing the other NPCs.
Yeah.
And again, in a selfish way, that's another part of the reason why I became a DM, is because I don't want to sit there and not do anything. I want to play every second of the game. So I am as a DM.
Yeah, same. And I think this is where again, I keep coming back to this railroad thing. This is when people think that DMs are railroading when actually all they're doing is playing the fucking game.
Yeah.
And they're putting things into the story because we're all telling the story together. We're all doing it, the players and the DM. And if the DM doesn't get to influence the story, then what are they doing? They are just refereeing things and describing things that you see. Great, that sounds amazing. I'd rather not do that though. I'd rather play the game. And part of that is throwing up random shit in front of you and, making decisions myself about what's going to happen here and then and what decisions NPCs are going to make. That's playing the game.
I heard the question differently in my head. I don't think I'm like the players. I think I'm different from the players. I play differently, but I am still playing the game of D&D. Yes, very much so. And I'm having lots and lots of fun.
So what does being a DM give you? What's the highlight that you get from being a DM that you don't get as a player?
Mine's not power. I got a different one than that. Getting to do stupid voices. That's the only reason I started to become a DM, and that was it. I just wanted to do different voices and make up different characters. That's all I wanted to achieve. If that was what I achieved, I got my goal. And to write a kick-ass story. That was number 2 goal.
Andrew Pierce, for all your voice acting needs.
Don't. I can only do so many. They all turn Scottish. Yeah, Russian or Scottish.
As long as they are Russian.
Yes.
And they sound 90 years old.
Yeah, it was my dream to go back and make that random person. I'll say this before, Jeremy Carrots in Vallaki,
I love Jeremy Carrots.
who was just this random guy I made up, and he read the news. The players took interest in Jeremy Carrots, and he's now the Barovian news reporter because they encouraged him to go off and find a job. They gave him a gold coin. He invested in stuff, and it's that development of these random NPCs. 9 times out of 10, you never get to develop your NPCs because they just ignore them or kill them, right? But that one time, that one gem of Jeremy Carrots, I will always have Jeremy Carrots in my head, and I will bring him back out when it is realistic to do so, and he will have developed because of the choices that the players have made. The grandmother who sold the iced buns, she's still around, and she's had different actions because you gave her money and bought her iced buns.
The power trip thing is a joke, but
yeah, of course it was.
there is a little bit of that. There's a little bit of that, but it is just coming up with this again when we're talking about like thinking that far ahead, like the whole where the useless fucks are right now. That's been in the works for months, and now you're getting to experience it, enjoy that, and watching and hearing you and you play through what I've created for you to enjoy is it's really rewarding and really satisfying. It's that makes me want to keep doing it as well.
For me, it's just generally it's just about playing the game. Like I said, I want to play it. I can essentially force the issue by providing the game, so to speak, being the GM and going, who wants to play in this one shot or whatever, and then I like quite setting them down, reading the rule book and planning out the encounter and stuff like that, and
it's quite therapeutic, isn't it?
Yeah, I sit there and put like something on to listen to, whatever, and then I just sit there making notes and messing about in Foundry and going, oh, that'd be cool. And then when it happens, I get like excited for them to turn around and go, oh, they're about to activate the button that kills everything, stuff like that. Like that's the
question to the other DMs: have you ever been sat on the toilet and you thought of a killer idea and you've got nowhere to write it down? You're like, ah!
It's the shower for me. That's what it's coming to me.
Most of the ideas come in the shower.
Yeah.
Okay, so finally then, we've talked about an awful lot of stuff, but if there's anyone out there at the moment who's watching who thinks themselves they want to dip their toe in and maybe have a crack at this, what's your one simple tip, each of you, for that new DM, aside from just go for it?
Aside from just go for it.
Oh, you've got to think about it.
It's not as hard as you might think.
Speak to another DM.
Yeah.
Talk through your ideas with another DM and get their input.
Name all your bad guys, starting with D.
Dean.
You can never go right. Dean, Derek, Dennis, Darren, Darubal, the magic.
Dandrew.
Daedalus Delopoulos, the warlock of the 9 kingdoms. There you go, BBG straight there. I am Daedalopoulos, and I will destroy you and your family.
Pearls of wisdom, truly. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on this podcast episode, and I hope you enjoyed it at home. Please feel free to like and subscribe and come and join us in the Discord server and get to know us and join us for a game.
And remember, railroading isn't real.
Neither is sandboxing.